Just like Finn the human, Jake also had several different variants throughout the series, and similar to his brother, these different forms can be categorized into two different sections. First, his true alternate versions, who are still Jake but exist in different timelines, and second, his other lives, which are not Jake in name or form but represent his past and future incarnations. The earliest possible past life of Jake most likely was Nina. Although he's not properly recognized as an alternate version of Jake, he is Gunther's companion and can be associated with a reincarnation of Jake because of his color and face, and the title card of this episode mirrors the last part of Adventure Time's intro, with Gunther taking the place of Finn and Nina taking the place of Jake. The version of Jake that we know for sure is an actual past life of him is Shoko's tiger. Not much is known about Shoko's tiger's personality, or in fact anything, but it seems loyal enough to Shoko to allow her to ride it and obey her commands. It also feels comfortable enough to sleep around Shoko and eats the bread Shoko offers it from her hand. Shoko's tiger also comes to her defense without being called when Shoko attacks a member of the Bath Boy gang. After Shoko falls into the irradiated river, Shoko's tiger sits down on the shore, implying that it had a deep enough attachment that it would wait for her to come out. However, after Shoko reemerges as a large slug-like creature, her tiger doesn't seem to recognize her and runs off in fear. It's unknown what happened to her tiger after it ran away from her. And there's also Beth, who is probably the most important incarnation of Jake in history. She was born the princess of the Pup Kingdom, but she was later exiled for reasons unknown and became a fugitive to the kingdom. She went on to live in the former home of Marceline with Shermie. In a failed attempt to capture the prize ball guardian, Shermie found Finn's lost mechanical arm. To learn of its origins, Beth suggests visiting the fabled King of Oo, who in their time is a lonely Bimo. Now living in a house on the top of Mount Cragdor and surrounded by relics of Finn and Jake's era, they're thought to be nothing but a legend. When Beth shows Bimo the arm, they finally consent to tell her and Shermie about the Gum War, the battle against Golb, and the final fate of the people of Finn and Jake's era. After their visit with the King of Oo, Shermie remembers having seen the fern tree previously shown in Lemonfolk Part 2 and Grable's 1000+ in his travels around Oo. The two arrive at the tree and climb all the way to its top, finding the restored Finn sword. She instructs Shermie to lift up the sword, leading him to mimic Finn's iconic pose seen in the show's opening sequence, as Beth assumes the pose made by Jake. Sometime later, Shermie and Beth finish vandalizing Gibbon's palace when Shermie goes into a trance and begins saying strange things referring to a Betty and alternate universes. He then says to Beth that he is actually Simon Petrikov from another universe and is looking for the Ice Crown. Beth, at first assuming Shermie is just trying to get out of going to the library, entertains Simon's request and helps him retrieve the book Ancient Artifacts. When Simon insists he needs the book to save his friends Fiona and Cake, Beth decides to take him seriously and shows him how to read the book, which they soon learn is a choose-your-own-adventure holo book about two characters named Casper and Nova. Over the course of reading the book, Beth observes as Simon repeatedly picks the Casper character's choice. After this results in a final choice with both options being unhappy, Beth points out the lack of balance in Casper and Nova's relationship, casually saying that since Simon is a kid, unaware he is actually a middle-aged man in a child's body, he does not understand these things. Simon appears to have an epiphany at this reveal, and Beth watches with confusion as Shermie abruptly returns to his body and informs her he was trapped in his own mind. There's a lot of potential in the spin-off about the adventure of Adventure Time, and one of the biggest points of focus of that show, if it ever comes, will surely be Beth. In the comics, Beth is also the name of Jake's other future life. It's a tigercorn who lives in the far future with her companion Penelope, who is the future reincarnation of Finn. She was first seen at the end of issue 25 along with Penelope. She only speaks once in issue 61, and other times either does not speak or makes a roar sound. She's always seen with Penelope. She's a tigercorn with Jake-like eyes, purple fur with colored stripes in the order of red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. She has a magical tail that can increase and decrease in length. In issue number 60, it's revealed that her name is Betty, and in issue 61, it's revealed that she is a tigercorn. The most popular version of Jake, other than the original one, of course, is Cake. She is a gender-swapped version of Jake in the Ice King's self-written fan fictions. She travels with Fiona, and Lord Monochromicorn is her boyfriend. She has stretchy powers and can morph her body just like Jake. As a cat, she also possesses the ability to see in the dark. The fur on her tail stands on the end, or frizzes out when there's danger around or when she gets excited. In the sequel series Adventure Time Fiona and Cake, it's revealed that Cake and Fiona are real due to Prismo's inspiration to create his own reality, but had been hidden within Ice King's mind. The second alternate version of Jake that's appeared in the series is Farm World Jake. In the episode The Lich, after the real Finn and Jake are pulled in the wormhole by the Lich disguised as Billy, the scene goes to another dimension where we see Farm World Finn with a robotic arm and playing the flute. Jake is seen as a normal dog with small eyes and has no shapeshifting or stretching powers and is unable to speak but barks like a normal dog. This was caused by Finn's wish for the Lich's non-existence. After Jake is caught in the blast of the mushroom bomb, he transforms into that world's version of the Lich and undergoes physical and psychological change like Finn does when he puts on the crown. His eyes turn green and he's unable to recognize Finn and even attempts to attack him. His head also transforms into a skeletal, dog-like version of the original Lich's. It is because of his existence that Prismo sent normal timeline Finn and Jake to stop Farm World Finn from putting all the germs in its worlds and Caridian and make it a possibility to destroy their and other universes. Finn and Jake later cured Farm World Finn and Jake from being a wizard and lich and reunited them with their family. Interestingly enough, it is unknown how he can exist in the Farm World timeline due to the fact that Jake is a shapeshifter hybrid in the primary timeline. It's possible that he's part shapeshifter but does not possess the intelligence of the talking animals of Ooh to learn how to access his powers. This is evident in Crossover, as the Lich is able to do a degree of shapeshifting when possessing Farm World Jake's body. Warren Ampersand is an alien creature rather than an Earth mutant, so the Mushroom War likely has no impact on his existence. Another possibility is that he exists as an analog of Jake, rather than being the same individual. This can be supported by the fact that Choose Goose and Billy, who are a goose and a humanoid respectively, have analogs on Farm World who are humans. Choose Bruce and Bobby. If this were the case, Farm World Jake's powers are likely a product of the mushroom bomb rather than the result of being a hybrid. In the series, we also see the older Jake in the episode of Dungeon Train. In this episode, Finn observes a possible future scenario where he doesn't leave the dungeon train and keeps fighting the train's denizens. Finn is initially content with this outcome until he sees that Jake stayed with him all those years, trying in vain to get Finn to leave with him. There's also Weirdo Jake who resides in the Grotto world, which can only be accessed via a whirlpool in the Grotto of the Water Nymphs. He lives in a regular tree with Weirdo Finn. This Jake is a small, orange creature that bears slight resemblance to a tadpole of sorts. He has 6 stubby limbs and a long tail that ends in 2 tufts. He has a rounded face with features similar to the original Jake, such as the eyes and an animal-like mouth. However, this version of Jake's mouth resembles more of a cat. There's also Jax, a fictional character created by the Ice Queen in her fanfiction, intended to be a gender-swapped version of Jake. He is presumably Finn's adoptive brother, as that is the relationship of their gender swaps. There's also Baby Jake, who is from the Baby World timeline. He first appears in The Winter King when Fiona, Cake, and Simon Petrikov visit his universe. He is seen with Finn as they play with Cake, who soon brought them over to her friends. He watched as Finn got a hold of a rattle and hit Baby Cinnamon Bun in the head, causing him to cry. I believe these were all the versions of Jake that have appeared in the show, but thankfully there's also the comics, where a lot of interesting versions of Jake appear. The first different Jake that makes his debut in the comics is Older Jake. In the 6th chapter of the original comics, the story starts with Princess Bubblegum in her lab working on an alarm clock. She then reveals her bigger accomplishment, a real time machine. Finn and Jake burst in and ask about it, and when the princess explains, Jake tries to steal it so he can teach his baby self how to be cool, but his hopes are quickly dashed when the princess explains that the time machine can only travel back to the point when she created it. Jake complains, but then presses the button with everyone holding onto the machine, and they successfully travel 90 seconds into the past, the moment when the time machine was finished. Jake then wrecks PB's lab twice while she tries to explain how it all works, essentially calling it a do-over button, and Jake uses the machine again twice. Princess Bubblegum then warns him that it's for emergency use only, and nothing else, which Jake ignores as he messes up her name on purpose to use it again. Bubblegum states that he can't use it for that, just as her alarm goes off for her to go to the royal court. After she's gone, Jake proposes that they go out and cause some emergencies so they can use it again, but loses a game of rock, paper, scissors with Finn about it. They sit around for a long time until Jake realizes that if only he touches the device, then only he will travel back in time. time. He uses the device and redoes everything, only this time he wins the rock, paper, scissors game. He and Finn go out and try to cause some emergencies, but Jake stubs his toe, so he uses the machine again. Jake causes a time travel spree to accomplish things like finishing a crossword puzzle, eating large amounts of cake, or for just no reason before stopping. Later that evening, as Princess Bubblegum returns from the royal court, she finds a note from Jake saying nothing crazy happened. She then checks the hidden usage counter and finds that overall the machine was used 88,121 times before Jake stopped. This ticks off the princess, who realizes she had to give her speech over and over again 88,121 times. She then realizes her mistake in trusting a 13-year-old boy, Finn, and his dog, Jake, with the power of time travel. She finally destroys the device with a princess smash and leaves. Jake is then revealed to be creeping in the window and says that he messed up, too big to not rewind at all. He starts to try to fix the machine and the comic ends. The next chapter starts by Jake attempting to fix the time machine but is unable to do so. In the morning, Jake wakes up Finn and tells him that the time machine needs to be fixed. Jake then shows Finn a party that Jake has started. Jake has promised that the partygoers can do anything they want, and Jake promised that he'll make a do-over using the time machine. Jake then showed Finn the time machine. Jake says that he tried to repair it, but all it can do now is emit smoke. The duo then brings it to Neptune and asks him to repair the machine. Neptune was able to repair the machine while retaining the smoke-emitting properties. Finn and Jake then press the time machine and are teleported inside a box. They break out of the box and discover that both of them have muscular bodies. They then rush inside the tree fort to show BMO their bodies, only to discover that the tree fort is trashed and BMO missing. They rush toward the Candy Kingdom to meet up with Princess Bubblegum. During their journey, they discovered that the surroundings have changed and are littered with robotic parts. As they're talking, they're suddenly bombarded with laser beams and spot a robot. Finn and Jake subdue the robot and they notice that the robot resembles Finn. They continue running towards the Candy Kingdom, which is being guarded by the Royal Gumball Guardians armed with rifles. The duo eventually reaches Princess Bubblegum and are surprised to see her looking like a cyborg. Bubblegum then said that she is actually wearing her robotic welding mask and she also prefers to be called Queen Bubblegum. Due to Finn and Jake's lack of knowledge of recent events, Queen Bubblegum realizes that the time machine that Finn and Jake used actually teleported their consciousnesses to their present bodies, while erasing the memories that occurred between those two time periods, and it has been 15 years in the future. According to Queen Bubblegum, after Finn and Jake pressed the button on the time machine, it didn't work, so they went to Princess Bubblegum and asked her to fix it. Princess Bubblegum became angry because they tried to repair it, but she couldn't stay mad at them for long. The next day, BMO showed them the robotic Finn and Jake that BMO has been building for months. Finn and Jake use the clone to do all the chores while they go out to adventure. One day, the clones got wet with rain and became evil. Finn, Jake, and Princess Bubblegum battled the robot and forced it to retreat into the woods. The clone was able to create more clones who are already evil. The citizens of Oo battled the clones, but couldn't exterminate it because the clone just keeps on creating more clones every day. Queen Bubblegum has been able to replicate the weapons used by the clones and attach them to Finn's arm. Meanwhile, Jake has been able to shapeshift into more powerful forms. The battle is currently locked in a stalemate. Since the clones started attacking, BMO hasn't been seen since the clones started attacking. Finn then suggested that they just create a time machine to change the timeline, but Queen Bubblegum said that they have attempted it multiple times to no avail. She says that the time machine was powered by magic that only existed a couple of days since the time machine was created. Queen Bubblegum then says that Finn and Jake can be stuck in the future forever. She then explains that the robots haven't attacked for days. However, an army of robots are then shown marching towards the Candy Kingdom. At Queen Bubblegum's laboratory, Finn, Jake, and Princess Bubblegum are attacked by evil robots. Using tank legs as a bomb, Finn, Jake, and Bubblegum escape the Candy Kingdom with seconds to spare. The Candy Kingdom explodes, killing all the evil robots inside, but more are on the way. Finn, Jake, and Bubblegum come across Choose Goose, who offers to sell them a sword that can help destroy the evil robots for 50 gems. Finn only has 49 gems, so Choose Goose does not sell it to them. Finn and Bubblegum decide to run to Marceline's cave, while Jake stretches himself huge to fight off the incoming evil robots. After getting to Marceline's cave, they seal the door, which gives them 10 minutes until the robots break in. Finn then comes up with an idea to put all the heavy lifting on their future selves. The three swear to spend the rest of their lives working on time machines to send back to that exact moment, which they will then use to go back in time to stop the evil robots from happening. A time machine teleports into the cave with 2 seats and a note saying that Bubblegum should stay behind and not travel back with Finn and Jake. After hugging, Bubblegum kisses Finn and tells him that 6 years is not such a big deal when they are older. Finn and Jake use the time machine to go back in time while Bubblegum sits and waits when suddenly a giant robot hand crashes through the cave ceiling. Finn and Jake go slightly too far back in time, arriving at the time of issue 1. They travel again and end up in the original pilot episode. Finn remarks that this is back when he made everyone call him Pen because he loved pens so much and admires his past self dancing. Jake takes Finn's sleeping bag from the past and they return to the time machine. Finn tells Jake to return the sleeping bag or he will mess up history, but Jake reminds him that this is when he lost his sleeping bag, so he's supposed to take it. This makes Finn realize that he was the one who left a note for himself in the past, explaining that he should use his real name and that he borrowed his sleeping bag. He leaves the note and Finn decides to drive the time machine because it only has one use left and Jake has gone to the wrong place twice. They arrive in issue number 5 and explain to BMO that they're from the far future. They let BMO know that they appreciate the robots he made, but they become evil when they get wet. BMO understands and the three destroy the robots. BMO points out that now that Finn and Jake have older bodies, they will be wimpy old men way sooner. Finn and Jake go to Princess Bubblegum for help. Finn suggests that Princess Bubblegum pour science on their time machine to make it work again. She agrees, and just before they use it, Jake reveals to Princess Bubblegum that she and Finn kissed in the future, much to Finn's embarrassment. Finn and Jake reappear in their normal bodies and talk to Princess Bubblegum, who is confused because the time machine she just finished disappeared. Finn mentions that the time machine they used disappeared too. Princess Bubblegum is even more confused but is interrupted by her alarm to remind her to go to the royal court. Finn and Jake decide to keep their time travel a secret because they're the only ones who remember. Finn deposits 1 ruby in the bank to pick up in 15 years just in case. They return home and realize that because they went back in time again, the robots haven't been destroyed. Jake destroys them again while Finn explains why to BMO again. The scene cuts to Finn, Jake, BMO, and Princess Bubblegum after returning from the royal court playing video games, concluding the time travel story arc. This was not the only time futuristic Jake appears in the story. In fact, he appears one more time in chapter 33, but he largely stays the same and there's nothing really interesting about him besides the fact that he does a merged shapeshift with Marceline to fight against Nemanoid, an extremely powerful character that feeds on people's memories that makes Finn lose large parts of his life. However, an interesting version of Jake appears in the 5th issue, a character named Adventure Tim. In that chapter, Finn and Jake then find a tree fort similar to theirs and they knock. The person who answers says that his name is Adventure Tim. He introduces them to Alan, his computer friend. Finn and Jake introduce themselves, then Alan says that he would ask them if they wanted a cupcake, but Tim ate the whole thing. Finn asks Tim what he does, and he says that he fights evil and saves princesses from the Mice King. Jake asks what princesses he saves, and Tim says he saves tons, like Princess Chewy Paste, Irregular Topography Expanse Princess, and Lunchbox Princess. Jake then gets angry because he thinks that those are all knockoffs of their princess, and the Mice King being a copy of the Ice King. The Mice King then appears and attacks them, but is defeated by Finn, Jake, and Adventure Tim. Afterward, they return home and have a discussion about Tim. Jake says it's weird that Adventure Tim is having slightly different adventures than they are, so Finn says they'll change Tim's adventures by what they do. Jake then puts his cheeks together and blows a raspberry, and Tim does so while on his date with Lady Unibrow. Adventure Tim comes back in the 10th issue. The chapter starts with Ice King cursing Finn and Jake with a spell, allowing the reader to choose the duo's actions. It is now up to the reader to choose the adventure through multiple plot choices in order to free the heroes. The reader can choose to seek help from various characters. If they visit the Fire Kingdom, then Flame King will tell them that Flame Princess isn't around. They will invariably end up going to Princess Bubblegum. This segment of the story includes an alternate bad ending where the reader refuses to let Finn properly explain the situation to her, and they end up stuck forever. If the reader chooses not to make Finn and Jake toot, then they will also end up seeking help from Adventure Tim, who is suffering from the exact same problem. Eventually, the reader arrives at one of 3 possible endings. Firstly, the characters will refuse to do anything interesting until the reader relinquishes control. Secondly, the characters will attempt to give the reader so many choices that they can no longer keep track. Thirdly, Princess Bubblegum can recast the spell of Finn and Jake so that they are back in control of their own bodies. Whatever the reader chooses, their control will be relinquished, and the story ends with Finn and Jake telling Ice King not to do it again. He was such an interesting and fun character. Wish we saw more of him, at least in the comics. However, in my opinion, the most unique and sinister version of Jake appears in the new Adventure Time comics. In this comic, Finn and Jake have a big falling off. A princess named Computer Princess creates clones of the citizens of Ooo without their consent, which deeply upsets Jake, but Finn seems completely fine with it. In fact, he's so intrigued that he decides to go adventuring alongside his own clone, despite Jake's protests. Convinced that he and his clone are strong enough to defeat the Lich alone, Finn recklessly challenges him and is utterly dominated, ultimately becoming possessed by the Lich himself. Racked with guilt over their argument, Jake takes the Ice King's crown and wishes for Finn's safety, but the result is far from what he expected. Jake's body begins to twist unnaturally and a fiery light ignites within his mind. Inside his mind, we see flashbacks of him and Jake and also the backstory of this universe's Simon, who is taking care of Marceline with Betty. In order to protect Betty and Marceline, Simon puts the crown on his head, but around this time Betty accidentally drops miniature Golb that turns Simon into a Golb-like creature. Soon Jake encounters Golb, who possesses him, and by the end of the chapter, a monstrous, possessed Jake is seen leaping across the land of Ooo. His voice is no longer his own, now speaking in the corrupted language of Golb as he brings chaos to his homeland. The next chapter starts with Jake having flashbacks from previous chapters, and while his body is breaking apart between worlds. Back in the land of Ooo, everything is black and white since Golb Jake took away color. I guess at the end of the previous chapter. Marceline, Princess Bubblegum, and Billy are desperately trying to make sense of what just happened. Marceline angrily brings up Golb, realizing that the entity's chaotic influence may have affected the robotic crown's code. The princess panics, insisting she didn't mean for this to happen, that she only wanted to archive people, not resurrect ancient curses. She admits that she copied fragments of Ice King's memories into the robotic crown, but something in that infected the system like a virus. Suddenly, Ice King himself barges in, demanding to get his crown back, yelling about his missing memories. His obsession echoes the past, showing just how much the crown still controls him. Billy offers Computer Princess if he should shut down the Ice King, which the princess agrees on. However, before Billy manages to do that, Ice King escapes to get his memories back. At the same time, Marceline, Bubblegum, and Computer Princess decide to come up with a plan to get everything back to normal. Computer Princess says that her plan is to reset everything, that is the way to get everything back to normal, but Marceline is skeptical of her plan, since this is Golb, a god that they're talking about. While discussing about Jake, they also remembered Finn, and Computer Princess assures them that Finn and his clone are probably still in the cave and reading the Enchiridion. She calls his clone, which says that the Enchiridion, Finn, and Golb are all lost, which angers Marceline, demanding the whereabouts of Finn. Meanwhile, inside Finn's mind, we can see the inner battle between him and the Lich. Finn is very scared, and it looks like the Lich is winning against him. He misses Jake and is trying his best to find him. Jake attempts to do the same. He meets Golb inside his mind and asks him where Finn is, and before he gets an answer, Golb starts acting, and then we see Lich Finn, who feels the presence of Golb and asks him to allow them to take the land while Golb takes the sea, and they should meet at the crossroads of utter destruction. Then the land cracks, and it looks like the beginning of a giant earthquake. Golb at that time had changed his design and resembles Jake, similar to how a mixture with Betty affected his appearance to change. He causes a giant tsunami on the land of Ooo. Then we see Lich Finn opening some kind of portal. That same kind of portal appears above Golb Jake. Both of them enter it and finally see each other. This scene looks awfully similar to the Lich's final scene from Fiona and Cake when he meets Golb Betty. In a similar way, he's on his knees and asks Golb Jake to grant him the power to destroy the world and bless him to wipe away what once was and start something anew. He asks Golb Jake to allow him to decimate, to cease, and in the end says that it's time, but before anything happens, Golb Jake seems to go against him. It looks like Finn and Jake somehow managed to get in touch with each other and now started working together to defeat these two giant forces of evil. We do not know how this particular story ends, since as of today this comic is still unfinished, but it was still interesting to see this side of Jake. Usually he stays relatively the same across the multiverse, unlike his partner whose other variants have undergone a lot of different events throughout their journeys. I do wonder how this story will go, which will most likely be concluded in the next chapter. Which one do you think was the most interesting version of Jake that you would love to know more about? Let me know in the comments.